The toddler had not made a sound in 4 months. Not a word to her father, not a cry when she scraped her knee on the driveway. Then a 190-pound Bullmastiff walked into her kitchen and stopped 6 feet away from her. What happened in the next 2 seconds is something her father still cannot explain. Before we start, tap the like button and subscribe so you never miss a story like this one, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from and what the weather is doing there right now. Winnie, come here, baby. Come to Daddy. Nate's voice was calm. His hands were not. Dutch stood just inside the kitchen doorway. 190 pounds of fawn-colored muscle, a head like a cinder block, folds of loose skin over dark eyes, a chest so wide he had to angle himself sideways to get past the trash can. His breathing filled the whole room. Winnie was 3 years old and 30 pounds, and she did not move. She stood by the leg of the kitchen table in her sock feet, one hand still holding a plastic cup, staring up at the dog. Nate could see the pulse in her neck. He could see his own hand shaking in the reflection of the microwave door. "Winnie," he said again. "Please." She did not look at him. She had not really looked at him in 4 months. Dutch took 1 step forward. Just one. His nails clicked once on the tile, and then he stopped, the way a person stops at the edge of a room they have not been invited into. Then he sank down. Slowly, front legs first, then the rest of him, until that enormous head was resting flat on the floor and his eyes were lower than hers, and Winnie let go of the cup. It hit the tile and rolled under the table, and she did not flinch at the noise, and Nate watched his daughter cross the kitchen in 4 small steps and put both arms around the neck of an animal that outweighed her by 6 times. He could not breathe. He stood with one hand braced on the counter and watched her face press into the fold of skin under Dutch's jaw. The dog did not shift, did not lift his head, did not so much as blink, because that was the first time in 4 months that Winnie had reached for anything at all. 5 months before that morning, Nate had a wife. Lena was 34 and she was loud in the best way. She sang while she cooked and got every 3rd word wrong. She called Winnie Little Bird. She had a laugh that made strangers in grocery stores turn around and smile without knowing why. Winnie had been loud too. She narrated everything. She talked to the vacuum. She told the mailman about her socks. She asked why until Nate wanted to lie down on the floor. Then came a Sunday in February. Lena was on the living room rug folding laundry while Winnie stacked blocks beside her. Nate was at the hardware store buying a light switch. 12 minutes there, maybe 15 back. An aneurysm. That was the word they used later in a hallway under those flat white lights. There was nothing anyone could have done, they told him. Not him, not a doctor standing in the same room. It was over before it started. But Winnie had been in that room. Nate came home with a paper bag in his hand and found his daughter sitting on the rug beside her mother, patting her arm over and over, the way you pat someone to wake them up gently. Winnie did not speak again after that day. Not in the ambulance, not at her grandmother's house, not at the service where she sat on Nate's knee in a navy dress and looked at the flowers and said nothing. The doctors had a name for it. Traumatic mutism. They said the timeline was unpredictable. They said children process differently. They said a lot of things in soft voices, and none of them made the house any less quiet. Nate would stand in the hallway some nights just to hear something. The furnace, a car outside, anything. Dutch had been Lena's dog before he was anyone's dog. She found him behind the feed store where she worked, 2 years old and underweight and terrified of brooms. She brought him home in the back of a borrowed truck and told Nate it was temporary. It was never temporary. Lena was the one who taught him to wait at doorways. She was the one who tied a strip of blue fabric around his collar so she could spot him in the tall grass behind the property line. She was the one who let him put his head in her lap during movies until her legs went numb. After the funeral, Lena's brother took him. Nate had a 3-year-old who had stopped speaking and a job he was barely holding on to and no capacity for a dog that size. Then, in June, the phone rang. "Nate, I'm sorry. The new place won't take him. I've been trying for weeks." He almost said no. He had the word in his mouth. But he thought about the way Lena used to sit on the edge of Winnie's bed at night and tell her Dutch stories. Never books, never made up things. Real ones. Dutch getting his head stuck in a laundry basket. Dutch being afraid of a single duck. Dutch sleeping through a thunderstorm with his paws in the air like a dead bug. Winnie would laugh so hard she got the hiccups. "Is Dutch big?" "Bigger than Daddy," Lena would say. "Bigger than the car?" "Almost." And Winnie would go quiet with amazement, and Lena would kiss her forehead and say the thing she always said. "See you in the morning, little bird." And Winnie would say it back. "See you in the morning." Those were the last words Nate ever heard his daughter say out loud. He closed his eyes and put the phone against his forehead. "Bring him Saturday," he said. The first week, Dutch would not go past the kitchen. He lay in the doorway with his back legs in the hall and his front legs on the tile, and he watched Winnie the way a lifeguard watches water. When she moved, his eyes moved. When she sat, he lowered his head onto his paws and waited. Winnie did not touch him. She did not look at him directly, but she stopped walking the long way around the room to avoid him, and by Thursday she was eating breakfast with one foot resting against his side under the table. Nate saw it from the hallway and had to go stand in the garage for a minute. By the second week, Dutch had moved into the hall outside her bedroom. He would not sleep anywhere else. Nate tried putting a bed in the living room and woke up at midnight to find the dog stretched across the corridor again, filling it wall to wall like a fallen tree. At the end of July, Nate sat in a small office with a box of tissues on the table between him and Dr. Helene Petrov. "I want to be straight with you," she said. "Winnie is not stuck because she is broken. She is waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For somewhere safe enough to put it down." She tapped her own chest. "Whatever she is carrying, she has been holding it alone since February. She will not speak until there is somebody she trusts completely to hold it with her. That may be you. That may be someone else entirely. We cannot choose it for her." Nate drove home with the radio off. When he came through the door, Winnie was lying on the hallway floor with her cheek on Dutch's ribs and her eyes half closed, rising and falling with his breathing. That night, Nate sat down on the floor beside the dog at 2 a.m. He did not know why. He put his hand on that enormous shoulder. "Look after her," he said. "I'm not doing great at it." Dutch's tail moved once against the wall, slow, heavy, like a door closing gently. 3 nights later, Nate woke at 1:40 in the morning and knew immediately that something in the house was different. There was a sound, small, thin, right at the edge of hearing. He thought at first it was the radiator. He sat up and put his feet on the cold floor and listened, and his whole body went rigid, because it was a voice. It was Winnie's voice. He got to the door and opened it 2 inches. The hallway was dark except for the plug-in light by the bathroom, and in that orange glow he could see the shape of the dog sitting upright outside her bedroom, and his daughter sitting between his front legs with her back against his chest. She was talking. 4 months of nothing, and she was talking. Nate pressed his shoulder into the wall and did not move. He was afraid that if he breathed wrong it would stop and never come back. "I patted her arm," Winnie whispered. "I patted it a lot." Nate's hand went over his mouth. "She didn't wake up, Dutch. I did it right, and she didn't wake up." The dog did not move. "I said it in the morning. I said the words. She was supposed to say them back." Then her small hand went up to the dog's collar and found the strip of blue fabric knotted underneath it, and her fingers stopped. "Dutch." Her voice changed completely. "This is Mama's." The hallway was so quiet Nate could hear the clock in the kitchen. Winnie pulled the fabric up against her face and held it there. "She's not all gone," she whispered. "Right, Dutch. She's not all gone." Dutch lowered his head and rested his chin on the top of her hair and stayed exactly like that. The next morning, Winnie climbed into her chair at the kitchen table and looked at her father. Not past him, at him. Her eyes were not empty anymore. "Daddy," she said. The word came out rough and sideways like a hinge that had not turned in a long time. Nate sat down very slowly across from her. "Mama sent him back," Winnie said, "so somebody would be awake at night." He asked her how she knew that. She looked at him like he had asked her how she knew her own name. "He told me," she said, and reached for her toast. Under the table, Dutch's tail hit the floor once, slow and heavy, like a heartbeat in a quiet room. If this story reached you, think of the animal that stayed, the one that sat outside a door all night for someone who could not explain why they needed it. Write their name in the comments. Say it out loud if you have to. They earned that much. And if this story moved you, hit like and subscribe. It genuinely means everything to us. Thank you for spending this time with us today, and we will see you in the next one.